Life as a parent is nonstop. I'm so focused on keeping my family healthy that I barely have time to take care of myself. If this sounds like you, then you need to give Symbiotica a try. Symbiotica is a health and wellness company that empowers individuals to take ownership of their health with high-quality formulas and supplements crafted to boost energy, immunity, gut health, and more. Symbiotica supplements are made with clean, natural ingredients, and they don't contain any toxins or artificial ingredients. Because they were designed for us, busy parents. They're quick and easy to take. Just a daily dose for your energy, immune system, and overall well-being. It's made staying consistent so much easier. And the best part? Symbiotica is having their holiday sale, so now's the perfect time to put your health in the driver's seat. Head to Symbiotica.com for 20% off with code GIFT20. That's CYMBIOTIKA.com with code GIFT20 for 20% off. Your health transformation journey starts now. Symbiotica Natural and Organic Supplements.
Welcome in here to the 10 of 12 podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gilbert. Today here on the show, we are going to be talking some Big 12 hoops with CJ Moore from The Athletic. We'll also be talking a little K-State basketball, some Bruce Weber discussion for the Wildcat fans that are listening. We're almost halfway through Big 12 conference play. Things are going well. So just kind of be giving a nice overview of what's been going on, who the good teams are, who the bad teams are, who's looking good down the line. And, of course, we'll talk with CJ about K-State for a little bit towards the end. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at 10 of 12 Podcast. You can stay up to date with everything going on around the Big 12. The latest news, updates, predictions, scores, highlights, it's all there on Twitter at 10 of 12 Podcast. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in CJ Moore from The Athletic. CJ, how are we doing today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, thank you. Let's get right into things here. Around the Big 12, could be a team, a player, a coach. What's been the biggest surprise to you so far in the season?
Oh, man. That's a good question. I guess I'd say that Oklahoma State, I had some doubts that just Cade Cunningham could have enough of an impact to really, take them out of a bottom 4 team in the league. And I know they're just 3-3, but the way they've played recently, the win over Kansas, even the loss to West Virginia, where they really dominated most of that game, that'd maybe be up there. And then, the biggest surprise, I guess, would be Oscar Tshiebwe struggling. Not playing at the level that he's played at last year and what I saw him play at in high school. And, for him to transfer was probably a pretty big surprise.
Atop the Big 12, there's no disputing that Baylor's the number 1 team, but do you think that Texas or Kansas there sits at number 2?
Clearly Texas to me. I think Texas is the second best team in the league, even after losing to Texas Tech last week. Honestly, I'd probably put Texas Tech ahead of Kansas right now. I think Tech's probably got more talent. Kansas did win at Tech, which was a big, big win. And, I think that win will go a long way for them on their resume because I think Texas Tech is going to do really well the rest of the way. But that game was played without Kevin McCullar, I think McCullar is how you say his last name. That was kind of like mouthful. But, he didn't play in that game, and he's come on lately and been really playing at a high level. And I think they're kind of figuring out how to play and figuring out their rotation, and getting him back was big. So I think Texas Tech is kind of on an upward trend. Even Saturday I thought they were pretty impressive against Baylor. They were right in that game for the full 40, and that's a really, really good Baylor team.
So, you've got Baylor, Texas, Kansas, and Texas Tech. Do you think that there's a pretty significant drop-off after those 4 teams, or do you think West Virginia and Oklahoma are kind of right there with them? What do you think on that?
I think I don't think there's a lot of a drop-off from those 4. I think there's a strong top 7 in the league. And then there's probably a decent drop off from there to TCU, and then probably another drop off from there to K-State and Iowa State. But I do think the middle of the league is a lot stronger than it was last year, where you had Baylor and Kansas were really, really good last season. And then I thought there was a sizable drop off to that next tier. And that middle tier last year wasn't as good as it is, I'd say, this year.
You thinking 7 teams to the big dance?
Well, all of it depends on Oklahoma State and whether they're eligible or not. But if we're assuming they're going to be eligible, then yeah, I think the Big 12 easily gets 7 in, unless like a Oklahoma or Oklahoma State or West Virginia really, really falls off the second half of the year. I think the league can get 7 in.
Moving into March Madness, obviously we talked about Baylor, best team in the Big 12, hands down. What team do you think maybe has the highest ceiling? Not the best team, but the team that has the most potential to make a run? Because for me, it's Texas Tech, given their history. Chris Beard always has his guys bought in March. Do you still think that it would be Baylor, or is it maybe a different team apart from Baylor, if that is your answer?
No, it's Baylor to me. I mean, I had a statistic in my Big 12 preview that shows you teams that return 4 starters and were top 5 in KenPom the year before, what they do that next season, and almost all of them make like the Final Four championship game. To return as much as they did, and especially in this season. And they've got a great perimeter group. Their defense is probably the best in college basketball. I think that's definitely the team that has the highest ceiling in March. And then after that, I'd say Texas, because Texas has great guard play. Their front court's as talented as any front court in college basketball, and it also has an excellent defense. So I think those are the 2 teams that probably both have a shot to win the national championship. Now, I could see Texas Tech making a run to the Final Four. That wouldn't shock me. But if we're just talking title contenders, I think Baylor and Texas are right in that conversation.
Is the Big 12 the best conference in America? Do you think it's a different one?
Well, most people will tell you the Big 10. And the Big 10's depth this year is great. I mean, they've got like one turd in Nebraska. Penn State hasn't been great, but the Penn State's, I think they've got a decent non-conference win. Like Penn State's non-conference, they beat Virginia Tech and they beat VCU. So while they haven't won a game in league, like that's 2 pretty darn good non-conference wins. So the Big 10 is so deep. But if you take the Big 12's like top 5 or so, and you put them up against the Big 10's top 5, I think the Big 12 would show fairly well. We could do all the way down to 7. If you took the Big 10's top 7, took the Big 12's top 7, I think the Big 12 would perform pretty well. Now, what Big 10 has is they've just got a ton of teams, and they're, like I said, the bottom's stronger. But I think it's worth having the conversation, I guess, where there's some people will be like, oh, no, it's just the Big 10, and we'll move on with their day.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. I want to give just a little love to the teams in the bottom. Moving, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, I guess looking at the freshman classes is what I'm trying to say here. What program do you think has the most potential moving forward? Of course, Kansas and Baylor are going to get those big-time recruits, but, who's got a solid freshman class right now that's not, really going to land year after year big-time recruits?
Well, I mean, Baylor's class is pretty good that we haven't really even seen yet, I think.
Yeah.
But talking about like the teams that are in the lower half, TCU's probably got the best of the bunch in terms of just one player in the Miles kid, is it Mike Miles? I think?
Mike Miles. Yep.
Yeah, Mike Miles. He's been pretty impressive at times. I was kind of a believer in them. There's games where you watch them. The A&M game, I watched them. Their Oklahoma State win early. Like, there's times where you're like, oh, I'm maybe a believer in them. But then the last 3 games, they've just not been good. So they've kind of fallen off. But I think Mike Miles is a guy that's going to, be a big time player in this league for years to come. I'm sure you're getting at K-State because you're a K-State guy, right? And
Yeah.
I do think there's potential in that class. I think, Nigel Pack has been impressive at times. I think the reason they're playing better basketball of late and been a little bit more competitive is the emergence of Davion Bradford. I think he's been good for them, and I think he's a legit Big 12 big man. Like, I think he's going to be a really good big man down the road, and him and Nigel's, I think, will kind of probably be their two go-to guys as go down the road. And Selton Miguel's shown things at times, and I'm interested to see Luke Kasab. How do you say his last name?
Kazupki, I think.
Kazupki.
No one knows for sure, but yeah.
He played his first game the other day, right?
Yes,
yes. I saw him out there a little bit. I didn't catch that whole game, but I watched parts of it. I'm interested to see what he does because they need more shooting, and he was the guy that was billed as a shooter coming in. So I'm interested to see what he has down the road. But yeah, I do think there is, like, I think for K-State, what you want to see this year was like growth and improvement. And even though, they're losing all these games, I do think they're becoming more competitive, and it'll probably be hard to sell it to the fan base that, like, there is improvement, but the league's so good that just, like, even if you're getting better, you're not beating those top 7 teams. So there's only opportunities to really beat Iowa State and TCU maybe.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough, season for K-State, but I do see some hope down the road.
Going back to last year, K-State was 3-15 in the Big 12, and it was just ugly. It was like, why do I even have to watch this game? This year, are they winning games? No, but there's still light at the end of the tunnel. I think that these guys really do care for Bruce Weber. Talking about Bruce Weber, though, last year he had a large majority of his roster leave with getting transfers and all that stuff. He had the same issue with Marcus Foster probably 5 or 6 years back. So this is pretty much his third. He's had 2 rebuildings now. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. We've talked a lot about this on Go Powercat, but is this okay? Obviously, you're not Kansas, you're not Baylor. So you're going to have your roller coasters where you go up and have a good recruiting class and it goes down a little bit. That's fine. That's natural when you're not a blue blood, but it's happened to Weber twice where he's lost control of his locker room. I mean, is that okay? I mean, there's a lot of people not happy with Bruce. What do you think?
I think that this season would be a lot easier to stomach if they had been competitive last year. And I think if you're going to criticize that staff and criticize Bruce, you could definitely, criticize for last year and not realizing that, hey, you needed some help with that roster, and maybe there were some bad seeds in there. Cartier was such an important piece of that team. Like, they win as he went, kind of,
Yep, 100%.
And I did a story on that on him. He is an interesting cat, and I like him, but I also think, like, he's can be difficult, and I don't want to put all of last year on him, but, like, you saw he went to Virginia Tech, and that's becoming a pretty darn good program, and he didn't last very long there. And, he opted out for COVID, but as far as I understand, he's not going to ever be back.
Yeah.
And so, I think it just kind of turned south on them. And, you had the thing with him. And then also, their biggest problem last year to me was just, like, their big men could not catch the ball and could not finish around the basket. Mostly they couldn't catch anything. And I think that was maybe, not realizing, hey, we need some help here in the interior. And also maybe thinking your guys were going to be better than they maybe were. And, I think it was a disappointing year last year for them and with some of their older guys. But, long answer, I'm kind of rambling here, but I do think that like next season's a big year for the program and for Bruce. I think he'll get it next year. I don't see him. I don't see Gene Taylor making a move after this year, especially with just all that's going on in the world. Like I'd be surprised. I think Gene's pretty patient and, while, you have to criticize Bruce for like things kind of going south two different times. He has won 2 Big 12 titles, and has anybody else besides Bill Self won 2 Big 12 titles during that span? No. That's pretty impressive that they've been able to do it. I know it's been weird when they're like it's back and forth, but the fact they've been able to build it up twice that I know the first one was a lot of Frank's players, but the fact they were able to build it up and have a pretty good run there with that crew of Dean and Barry and Cam, I think you should get a shot with these young guys if the growth, you can see the growth there, and I think you're starting to.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Cardi real quick, man, the only thing I'll say is freshman Cartier Jada was a lot different than his, junior, when he left Cartier Jada. So he changed a little bit here in Manhattan, but certainly, we wish him the best. But back to Weber here. So what's the key to really, retaining a locker room? Because that's probably been his Achilles heel at K-State. He's lost his locker room twice, right? So what's the key to kind of, keeping your guys bought in? You can't rely on Barry Brown or Rodney Magruder to just manage your locker room. If they do, great, but if not, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's recruiting the right people and getting guys that get along and fit what you're about and what you want to do. But like you just said with Cardi, like sometimes guys change with success.
Yeah.
And, Bruce Weber's not the only one to like have guys go the wrong way sometimes. And I mean, it's why you see so much transferring in college basketball. And while it might feel unique to K-State, I don't know if it's as unique to K-State as like people think it is necessarily. But yeah, I just think it's having all, the best way to do it is to always have older guys that can kind of set the tone. And when your older guys don't set the tone and are the problem, then yeah, it becomes a problem. And I think maybe he sniffed out it a little earlier the first time around. Like, Marcus Foster basically had a year where he was a problem, and then he got out of there, right? But you couldn't have seen that coming after his freshman year. I don't think there were necessarily signs his freshman year of that,
Yeah, not at all.
So I don't know. They're college kids. I think sometimes there's some unpredictability there, but the best way is just having, older locker rooms where the traditions and the culture gets passed down from one to the next. And so it's kind of odd when you had this great culture that got passed down, but it wasn't received in the right kind of way, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you there for sure. Last thing for you before we let you go, man. We got a month and a half left of the season, give or take. What team is going to fall, or what team is going to rise? What's going to shock us the most as we move down the stretch?
Just in the Big 12?
Yeah. Put you on the spot a little bit there.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's going to fall off a ton. I think the team that's in the middle there, upper middle, the two teams that probably have the most chance to go one way or the other is Kansas and West Virginia. I think, one of those teams could fall off, and it wouldn't shock me. One of them could end up finishing third, and it wouldn't shock me. So those are probably the teams that are the most volatile. As far as one rising up, interested to see. Oklahoma's playing really kind of playing really good ball right now. It's been wild that Brady Manick gets hurt. They have two of their more impressive performances, because even though they lost to Kansas, they easily could have won that game. And man, what they did to TCU, like I did not see that coming. So maybe OU is a team that kind of rises up and should surprise some people.
All right, CJ, appreciate you taking time with us, and best of luck moving forward. Have fun, covering the Big 12, man. Appreciate you again.
Yep, thanks for having me on, Bub.
Once again, CJ Moore from The Athletic. Be sure to check him out on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops and also theathletic.com. CJ does a great job covering college basketball as well as Big 12 basketball as well. You can follow us on Twitter at 10 of 12 Podcast. Like I said earlier, you can stay up to date with everything going on around the Big 12 Conference. We're almost halfway through. Time is flying. There are some cancellations here and there, but we're getting through this Big 12 season and giving the Big 12 some credit for those open dates later in the season to make up these games that are being canceled. But that pretty much wraps things up for us here on the show. Appreciate you tuning in. Big thanks to CJ for taking time with us, and we'll catch you next week.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.